Hi, I'm Janet Chang, and I'm a solutions engineer here at Unit21. In my role, I partner closely with compliance and risk teams across banks, credit unions, fintechs, and other financial institutions to develop tailored AML and fraud solutions. Today, I'm excited to discuss the importance of real-time transaction monitoring and how our solutions can help. Our financial landscape is changing rapidly. People want things fast, and they want it now. As real-time payment rails evolve with rapid digitalization, fraud is also growing dramatically, and the need for real-time monitoring system is becoming increasingly paramount. As a financial institution or a fintech, you handle thousands of transactions daily, and each of these transactions actually represents a potential opportunity for fraudsters to exploit vulnerabilities in your program. So protect your customers and protect your organization from fraud loss with Unit21's real-time monitoring, and make swift decisions in just under 250 milliseconds, because time is money and every millisecond counts. Whether you're combating APP fraud, account takeover fraud, a new account fraud, stolen or compromised card testing, BIN attacks, or wire fraud. With real-time monitoring, there is immediate detection. So fraudulent transactions that are being flagged as they are happening or while they're in progress, and your team can immediately respond by either automatically blocking the transaction or having an alert generate in real time for your team to review and then make the decision to block or let the transaction through. Lastly, preventing future fraud losses by restricting activities on these flagged fraudulent accounts, as well as being able to quickly implement new rules to prevent other fraud scenarios. So all of this sounds really great, right? So why aren't more organizations implementing real-time monitoring? Well, here are the top 4 challenges that we often hear from our customers. 1, latency constraints. There are often very strict latency requirements where a response or a decision needs to be made in just under a second or half a second. And then there's resource constraints. Engineering resources are valuable, and the reality is there's just limited or no engineering resources available to do multiple integrations. Being able to promptly review issue is another challenge. So teams need to be automatically alerted on fraudulent activities so that you can quickly review and respond to those real-time fraud threats. And then lastly, the 4th challenge that we hear very often is you still want to maintain and ensure that there's a good user experience, a seamless experience for your valued customers. So the customers that aren't acting in bad faith, how do you differentiate between those and some of the potential bad actors on your platform? Well, let me demonstrate to you how Unit21's real-time monitoring solution can help tackle some of these obstacles by switching into the platform. Here's a look at our user interface. You can see it's a friendly, no-code interface that allows you to build and design your real-time monitoring rules so you can manage this without any engineering resources. For today's demo, I want to build a rule to look for any unusually large transactions for my customer base that is being conducted in a high-risk jurisdiction, unless it is a whitelisted customer or a valued customer that I know isn't doing anything suspicious, because I don't want those customers to be flagged or alerted on so that they can maintain a seamless, frictionless experience or a good user experience on our platform. So in my rule, again, I want to flag a transaction when the amount is equal or greater than 10,000, because that is considered to be unusually large for my customer base. And I want to flag only if this large transaction is being conducted in a high-risk jurisdiction. And this list that you're seeing on my screen here, this is actually any data that you collect on your customer or about the transaction itself. Unit21's data model is actually quite flexible. So what we're seeing on my screen here, or this list, is kind of the out of the box, very typical fields. So things like the address of your customer, their name, their date of birth, the status of their account with you, etc. But our data model can also accept any custom data fields that are relevant for your business. Again, any data that you collect on your customers. So I'm just going to scroll further down in this list here. You'll start noticing that I have, go back up, we have some fields labeled custom data. This is just referring to a data field that's custom to your business. So you can create any number of fields in Unit21 and use them in your rules logic. This example here, I'm just going to use country. So if a transaction is being conducted in a high-risk jurisdiction. A couple ways I can do this. One, I can hard code the list of country, or for scalability and maintainability, I would actually recommend leveraging Unit21's match list capability. What this allows you to do is create different lists, such as a high-risk country list, where as your list of the list of countries that are deemed as high risk changes, you can maintain that outside of this rule. You don't have to rebuild your rule. You don't have to redeploy your rule. All you have to do is just update the list, because this rule will leverage all the information listed in the list. So I have already created a high-risk country list, and all I'm doing here is referencing it. So now I've very quickly and easily built a rule to look for any transactions that are equal or greater than $10,000, and it's being conducted in a high-risk jurisdiction based off of the list of countries that I deem to be high risk. The last factor that I mentioned is I want to make sure my good valued customers have a seamless experience on our platform. So I don't want those customers to be flagged. So I had created another match list with my whitelisted customers based off of their customer IDs or entity IDs. So here I want to say, please do not flag please only flag customers that are not in or not on this whitelisted user list. So now that I think I'm happy with my rule, the last step in building a rule in Unit21 is we allow you to actually test this rule before you deploy it. That way you can confirm if this is actually the type of transactions you want to flag, or if this is the right threshold. So you can kind of test until you right size your threshold here. And what you're seeing on my screen here is I am just selecting a historical time period to apply this rule logic against. So I'm testing, if I had turned this rule on back in May 1st, what transactions would have been flagged. So let me go ahead and validate. This really depends on how much data you have in the system, but usually this really only takes about a couple of minutes. So give it a minute or two and see, based on my May transactions, what would have been flagged. All right, so my testing or validation has just completed. So I'll give you a summary of the rule that I just built. And if I scroll down further, based on the transaction that took place in May, you'll see which transaction passed and which ones would have been flagged or would have failed. Taking a look at the failed transaction, it met the first criteria of over $10,000. And if I scroll down further, I can see the address or the transaction was conducted in a high-risk jurisdiction, so in Russia, in my case. So I'm happy with my rule. I actually want to deploy this. Otherwise, if you're not happy with your testing, you can always duplicate this rule and adjust the parameters and test it again. But for today's demo, I am happy with the way it turned out. I'm happy with the testing. I actually want to go ahead and activate this. So when I activate or deploy this rule. It's just a simple click here, again, without any engineering resources. And then I also have an option of whether I want to automatically block all of these transactions or block all transactions that meet the criteria of this rule based off of the fail message. So the way the Unit21 real-time monitoring works is you'll get a pass or a fail. And I'll show you that in a sec. You either get a pass or fail. So if you do get a fail, it means that there is a transaction that has all these criteria. Do you want to automatically block it? So once you get that failed response, you can automatically block those transactions. Or when you activate the rule, you can also say, hey, I actually want an automatic alert to be generated to notify my team so that my team can review it and make the decision to either block the transaction or let it through. So let me select this option here. So here I'm just using my Postman tool to mimic a message that your internal system would send to Unit21 for this real-time transaction monitoring rule to evaluate a transaction that's taking place. So here's an example of a transaction that's currently taking place. This is being sent to Unit21. And as you can see, you get a really quick response back. And what we're seeing here is either a pass or a fail response for each of the real-time rules. So I've actually set up quite a few real-time rules already. It looks like this transaction has passed all of them, except for the last transaction, or sorry, the last rule that we just built. So this is an unusually large transaction over 10,000 in a high-risk jurisdiction. So this transaction actually failed that rule, which means something about this transaction is suspicious, meeting the criteria of the rule. So at this point in time, I can either set up my internal system to automatically reject or block this transaction immediately, or I can generate an alert for my team to investigate and then decide whether to release or block this transaction. So this is what the alert would look like. You get a nice summary to know why this alert got generated. It is because of this particular rule, the time that it was flagged, and then you'll see the amount that was flagged, and for which customer. So it looks like it was for my customer, Jamal. And if I scroll down further, I'll see the specific transaction that got flagged, this $12,000 purchase. And once my team has a chance to review the transaction, they can then either release the transaction or block the transaction by taking action on one of these buttons here. Unit21 will send up a webhook to your internal system to let you know whether someone on the team has released or made this decision to block the transaction. So that's it for today's demo. Just a quick recap. The value of the real-time monitoring in Unit21, fast response time. So you will get a response in under 250 milliseconds. You can deploy, you can see it, you can easily deploy a rule using our user-friendly interface with very minimal engineering resources. There's automated alerting when there is a failed or a transaction that should be flagged so that your team can promptly review it and then make a decision to block or release the payment. You can whitelist your customers, so whitelist the good customers to ensure that they have a frictionless experience with you on your platform, that they don't get flagged, and really empower your team to maintain and manage your monitoring system without any engineering resources. So hope that was helpful today, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you for joining our demo showcase. There are 11 more Unit21 demos you can dive into while attending Fraud Fighters Virtual Summit today, so please do so. Alternatively, if you're ready to learn more about Unit21 from one of our fraud and AML practitioners, you can simply scan the QR code on the left and request a personalized demo. And last but not least, I'm excited to share that we are in the midst of data gathering for our third annual State of Fraud and AML report. We're seeking to make this research the most informative findings yet, but we're unable to uncover and publish these insights without your contribution. Scan the QR code on the right to fill out the survey. It'll take no more than 10 minutes and it'll uncover invaluable industry trends and insights so we can all better combat risk and compliance together. Thanks so much for contributing to our research.